Hi students, moving on to the next chapter. Now the second chapter deals with font. So how do you style the text on your web page? In the previous chapter we saw how to add color. Now this chapter allows you to style your text. So when I am talking about text, there are primarily two things. When we talk about text, we talk about the term font. Now, font is a slightly complicated term. We say the font is Times New Roman, the font is Courier, the font is Arial Black. So, what we are actually talking about is not the font but the font family. When I say the font is Times New Roman, I mean to say the font family, or more technically, the typeface is Times New Roman. So font family, you can also call it the typeface. The other thing, important thing when I'm specifying the font is just specifying the font family is not enough. You need to specify its size also. Size plus any other styling also that comes in the font description only. So we'll be basically dealing with two things, font family and font size. So how do we set the font family? To do that, the thing is quite simple. Again, we're going to simply use the style tag. Look again, it's in the head section. You can see the type remains text-css. Now for heading level 1, we have specified the font family. So font hyphen family colon Comic Sans MS. Now this dictates that the heading level 1 should follow Comic Sans MS as the font style. It does not say anything about the size, as we'll come to that later. Let us just first focus on the first part of styling text, that is specifying the font family. So quite simple, isn't it? Just the same thing for whichever tag you are specifying. Name the tag, open the curly braces, specify the font family, make sure to end it with a semicolon just like previous with the color name, and close the curly braces, close the style tag. Now you have specified Comic Sans MS. So does this make your heading to be of type Comic Sans MS? Well, not really. It depends on which system I am opening the file, whether the system contains the Comic Sans MS font type already installed in the system or not. For most Windows system or even Mac based systems, Comic Sans MS is already installed, but in some systems but most fonts are not. So say for instance, if I'm using a very different rare kind of font, I should make sure that it is installed on my system. Otherwise the results can be quite different from what I expect. So even though a font may work perfectly fine on your computer, it may not work if that font isn't installed on the user's machine. By default, the Comic Sans font would look like this. This is a heading. So this is the Comic Sans font that is being used for this heading. On an iPad, however, this might look like this. The Comic Sans font is not there on the iPad, hence the difference. If the font is not there, the browser will use its default. It will try to fix it with whatever best it has. Obviously, if it has Comic Sans, it will give you Comic Sans font. If the Comic Sans font is not there, it will default to whatever best it can give you. So since it is not installed on Linux or Macs, it is the responsibility of the user to have this installed. But since Comic Sans is an overly used font for web development, most of the systems have it. But to avoid this problem of naming a particular font style and that font style not being on the user's system, we use generic fonts. Now, fonts were easy, right? Yeah, they are very easy. But the problem is, most systems will not have the font style you name installed on them. The solution is generic font names. That is, I give a very generic font name, and it's basically a font family class. Now, it's not a particular font family, it's a class of font families. So whichever font of that family or that particular generic font family is available, that is used. It will become a little more clear when I describe the types of generic fonts. So the generic fonts really are nothing but families of fonts. There are these 5 generic fonts available. The first one being the serif font. Now, the serif font are the fonts that have those little serifs or the tiny strokes at the top and bottom of the characters. The print text is generally your serif font. As an example, the Times New Roman or Times font is my serif type font. Now, sans serif. Now, sans means not. So sans serif, that is not serif. So this is not going to have those little decorative feats on the top or bottom of the text. As an example, you can see here, the serif F is more cursive and pro-like, whereas in sans serif, the F is more straightforward. It's not very bendy or curved. So sans serif, common sans serif font is the Arial font that we use in most word processing softwares. Now, the next generic font family is the cursive font. Now, the cursive font is more or like your handwriting. It looks like a handwritten piece of thing. So, cursive is basically the looking like the cursive handwriting. You can see it here, or even better, this is an example of the cursive style of font. This is on iPad and this is on a Windows system. So it varies from system to system. Comic Sans MS is a cursive font for Windows. The other type of generic font is the fantasy font. Now, fantasy fonts are really decorative. They particularly have a theme attached to them, such as they can represent a particular culture, say Persian or Chinese, or even for that matter Hindi or Sanskrit. So these regional and decorative fonts come under your fantasy fonts. Then we have the monospace font family for the generic font families. Monospace. Now, mono means single, space. Now, single, I don't mean that it should be single. Mono here means same space. Single space or same space. That means monospace fonts are going to produce fixed width font. So, every character is going to occupy the same width. The W is not going to occupy a larger width than A in monospace font. One such font is the Courier font, is considered to be the monospace font. Now, since generic fonts are available on all the computers, we'll assume that these fonts will look, if I'm specifying the font family as to be a generic font family, then the appearance is going to be same on all types of system. But no, as you can clearly see, in Windows system, the generic fonts look something like this, and in iPad, they look a lot different. You can clearly see the difference in cases of cursive and fantasy fonts especially. Now, these virtual fonts or generic fonts as we call them are also again system dependent. So what's the point? Why use generic fonts? Now, generic fonts are preferred because it will give you whatever the best it has. The appearance might not be same on all the systems, but you are guaranteed to get a similar looking appearance. So yes, generic fonts allow you to basically give a font style without explicitly specifying the font family. तो हमें ये नहीं कहना कि टाइम्स न्यू रोमन यूज़ करना है, हमने कह दिया कि कोई भी सेरिफ फॉन्ट यूज़ कर लो, चाहे वो टाइम्स न्यू रोमन हो चाहे कोई और फॉन्ट हो जो सेरिफ फैमिली को बिलोंग करता है, वो वाला फॉन्ट हम यूज़ कर सकते हैं. Now, this uncertainty is quite frustrating. So how do we control it? So to control it, अब जेनरिक फॉन्ट दे दिया तो अब कोई भी फॉन्ट स्टाइल आ सकता है. अब इस अनसर्टिनिटी को कंट्रोल करने के लिए एक तरीका ये है कि इंस्टेड ऑफ स्पेसिफाइंग अ सिंगल फॉन्ट फैमिली आई स्पेसिफाई अ लिस्ट ऑफ फॉन्ट फैमिलीज. सो मैं ये स्पेसिफाई कर सकती हूँ कि विंडोज़ के लिए तो टाइम्स न्यू रोमन यूज़ कर लो, बट मैक के लिए आप कोई और फॉन्ट यूज़ करो जो मैक में अवेलेबल हो. से फॉर एग्जांपल टाइम्स यूज़ कर लीजिए. एंड लाइनेक्स में इसका इक्विवेलेंट फ्री सेरिफ फॉन्ट है, तो आप लाइनेक्स सिस्टम में फ्री सेरिफ यूज़ करें. तो इंस्टेड ऑफ जस्ट स्पेसिफाइंग अ सिंगल फॉन्ट फैमिली, आई स्पेसिफाई अ लिस्ट ऑफ फॉन्ट फैमिलीज. तो अगर मैं विंडोज सिस्टम पे हूँ तो पहले वाला ऑप्शन ले लो, अगर मैं मैक पे हूँ तो दूसरा ले लो, और अगर मैं लाइनेक्स सिस्टम पे हूँ तो तीसरा ले लो. अगर वो तीनों ही अवेलेबल नहीं है तो मैं एक साथ में जेनरिक फॉन्ट फैमिली जोड़ सकती हूँ कि सपोजिटली मैंने लिखा टाइम्स न्यू रोमन एंड सेकेंड ऑप्शन है टाइम्स. तो टाइम्स न्यू रोमन नहीं है सिस्टम पे तो हम टाइम्स के लिए ट्राई करेंगे. जब टाइम्स भी नहीं अवेलेबल सिस्टम पे तो हम अपना जेनरिक फॉन्ट फैमिली पे जाएंगे जो कि सेरिफ फैमिली है. तो सेरिफ फैमिली का जो भी फॉन्ट अवेलेबल है मेरे सिस्टम पे वो यूज़ हो जाएगा. So before I specify how to specify a list of fonts, we come to the commonly used fonts and their equivalents on 3 different types of systems. So you can see on Windows system we have the font Arial. Mac system also supports Arial font, but on Linux the equivalent font is named Nimbus Sans L. Similarly, for Arial Black, Windows and Mac both use Arial Black, but we do not have a Linux font equivalent. The other fonts and their equivalents are Comic Sans MS. Comic Sans MS is used in both Windows and Mac. In Linux, it is known as TSCU Comic. Courier New is used for both Windows and Mac. In Linux, we use the font Nimbus Mono L. Georgia is used in both Windows and Mac. In Linux, we use Nimbus Roman number 9L. In Windows, we have Lucida Console. From Mac, the equivalent font is Monaco. We do not have an equivalent font in Linux. Similarly, Palatino is there in Windows and Mac, and free serif is used in Linux. Then we have Tahoma for Windows. The equivalent in Mac is Geneva, and in Linux we have the Calamity font. The Times New Roman, the equivalent in Mac systems is Times, and in Linux systems is free serif. Trebuchet MS is the font in Windows. Its equivalent in Mac is Helvetica, and Linux we use the free sans. The Verdana font is also a commonly used font in Windows. The same is available in Mac, but in Linux we have to use the Calamity. Now coming over to how to specify the list of fonts. So here we have specified for the paragraph tag the font family. The first option we have given as Trebuchet MS. So Trebuchet MS is if it is available. MS stands for Microsoft Systems. So most of the Microsoft fonts are suffixed with MS to specify they are Microsoft compliant font types. So if the computer system contains Trebuchet MS font, that is used as the font style. If not, we go on to Helvetica, which is the equivalent for Trebuchet MS in Mac. If we are not on a Mac system also and Helvetica is not there, the third option that is to be tried is Free Sans, such as the equivalent for Linux system. If none of these fonts is installed, then we go for the generic font, that is sans serif font. So you separate the list of options with a comma and end it with a semicolon. This is clear, and you can see all the fonts that have more than one word need to be enclosed in double quotes. Okay, so this is how you specify the font family. Make sure the fonts that are more than one word should be enclosed in quotes, and commas should separate the list of fonts. The ending is with the semicolon. Other thing is, for Linux fonts, they are difficult to remember. So in Linux systems, we don't really worry, because Linux users are generally of two types. One that don't care about fonts, and the second